again.
Welcome to the show.
I love that intro. It's so good.
I know.
It always gets me pumped.
I wish you could see the effect that the video effect, because I have this. It's like this. Did you? I can't remember the timeline. Did you ever see the game Portal before you lost your sight?
Yeah, I've vaguely seen it. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so imagine two portals, and there's like a stream of energy going between them. You're seeing them from a side view. You're watching it in front of you, and there's like two portals and a stream of energy going between them, and it's all blue and white and shit. That's the background that plays when that music.
It's very Doctor Who time vortex.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great.
I'm glad
that music is us going through a time vortex into the adventure.
Right.
Into the that could be a catchphrase. Into the adventure.
There's another T-shirt.
There you go.
A branding machine.
Yep.
That's why I can come up with so many things for TalkTube.
I'm just waiting for the Team Adventures advert on TalkTube.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That it's not something that I can do right now because I'm very, very busy at the minute.
that feels like facetiousness.
No, I genuinely, because obviously I'm working all the time on Bleeding Ground, and I'm also pouring a lot of time into Dishonored and Death at the minute as well, which I'm going hard on at the minute. And it's fun. I'm really enjoying it as a process because I've never needed to do it quite like this before. And yeah, it's a fun challenge, but it's also time consuming and mind consuming too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I cannot think of anything else right now, even when I try to.
Yeah. I understand how that is, because right now I'm getting all the stuff together, finish World Next Door, its final iteration. So that's
awesome.
it's kind of all consuming in my brain right now.
I could not wait to read that one day. I'm genuinely really looking forward to that because I just cannot wait to see what your weird brain comes up with. Fantastic.
It's very weird.
There's going to be so much jargon, and it's going to be great to listen to.
Yes. Well, yeah, because it's the setup. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like I have all of this stuff and all of these little Easter eggs and things that aren't going to come to fruition until
Listen,
later.
I like things that are smarter than I am. I love characters who are smarter than I am. I get so much entertainment out of watching them. It's like, you're so smart. I wish I could be you.
Oh man, I'm kind of debating if I should actually go ahead and put together the ending volume for the entire thing, just so that I have that.
Nice.
Because I have figured out the reason why the entire multidimensional thing was created and everything, like the whole character's motivation for creating all of these things, but I'm not sure if I should go ahead and just draft the end. Like
that makes sense. Even if it's just something that you keep in, like, that you keep there in the bank, then, and you've got something to work off. Then,
yeah. And
sometimes you just get struck with them moments. I don't know. Zack will probably say he doesn't do this because he never agrees with things that I do as a writer. I think sometimes I have like a moment, and I'm like, right, I need to write this thought down right now, because if I try to be like, right, well, I'm doing something else right now,
Yeah.
Well, I'll just not do it this second, and then I don't do it till the next day, and I cannot remember the thing that I was like in that moment. I was like, yes, that's the thing. So I have to like get just like a few thoughts down, even if it's just a few words that I can go back to and be like, yes, that's the vibe I was going for.
Yeah.
No, Mason, we've stumbled across common ground. I do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I finally found the thing.
There have been times where I was just laid in bed, and I literally, my computer was off, like not even asleep. My computer was off, and I was laid in bed, and I was like, "Fuck, I have to get up and type that
You
out."
just scratched it into your skin. That hardcore, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
I think the most extreme I ever went was using a pen on either a napkin or it wasn't. Yeah, I think I had to write something on a napkin one time.
That's cool. I've always wanted a friend like that.
Yep.
Yeah, we've all been there. Or a corner of one of those disposable tablecloths.
Just a tablecloth in a restaurant. You're like, right, I've got to write it down there, get a pair of scissors, chop that little corner off, stick that in my pocket.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because it was a disposable tablecloth that had been put over like one of those big foldable tables, and we had it in the back at this place where we'd done like youth theater and stuff. And so it was after everything was done, and we were just sitting back there, just, fucking around or whatever. And I was sitting at the table, and I got an idea, and I was like, oh shit. And there was a Sharpie. So I was like, okay. So I just like pulled up the little corner of the table and wrote the thing out in Sharpie on the corner of the table, and then just ripped it off and shoved it in my pocket.
That's when I like that. I'm starting to do that sort of stuff then. It's like, okay, I am becoming a writer.
Right, yeah. It's like, I have officially made it.
It's not just something I call myself now. I'm actually becoming one. It's great.
I have officially moved into Charles Dickens mode, which, I mean, not as bad as him, though, because he was so obsessed with it that he would literally sit there and scratch words with his fingernails into tabletops or armrests of chairs.
That's wicked.
Yes.
I was on the bathroom, and I had to write it on the bathroom stall. So I had to go back to that same restaurant the next day and visit the bathroom so I could read what I wrote on the back of the door.
Unfortunately, they had already cleaned it off.
The one time they actually cleaned that toilet.
Right.
They left Lucy's "Call Me for a Good Time" number up, but they scratched my idea off.
It still says ring 0800 for cock on there, but for some reason they got rid of my plot twist.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine how pissed you would actually be, bro? Like, I would be irate. I'm not even gonna lie. I would probably go to management about that.
Oh my
I'd be
gosh.
like, look, I scratched something. I took a Sharpie to the stall wall, and it was an important idea. And I didn't have my phone. I couldn't take a picture. I had nothing. I couldn't write it down any other way. I came back today with my phone to get a picture of it, and it was gone. But the local prostitute's phone number is still there.
That is so good.
The realization that I just yelled that in my church makes it even better.
Yes.
That was really good.
What's magical about that is I could totally see that being like a sitcom or a comedy movie.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, it's the classic sitcom setup.
Oh, that is like right out of an episode of Friends or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But better.
Nothing gets better than Friends. Don't you say that?
Or wait, I'm sorry. Did I say Friends? I meant to say Seinfeld. I was literally picturing Seinfeld in my head when I said it. What the fuck is wrong with me?
No, it's Kate that said Friends.
No,
Well,
I said Friends.
He said Friends first.
Oh.
Oh God, Mason, are you going deaf too?
Possibly.
Oh,
Possibly.
Alrighty, let's get to the thing before we're all old and gray.
Yeah.
Oh well. I mean, the grey thing is already starting with me. So.
You're
really?
No, it's been happening for a while. It's not loads, but there's like since I was probably it started really early because my mum went grey early too. So it was I started getting greys probably in my early 20s. Either that or Lee's just been winding me up for years.
She's like, you're like 50 years old. She's sitting there with you, be like, baby, you got your first grey in your beard. And you're like, oh, come off it, woman. And she's like, no, I'm serious. Like, I've been pulling your leg for all this time, but you actually got your first grey.
I think I'm just like as white as Gandalf, but really I'm just still brown haired.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That would be hilarious.
I know. But no, I think as far as I know, it's visible if you're up close and looking, but it's not the sort of thing that you're going to spot from a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like my beard is actually my beard is kind of salt and pepper, except it's the color of my hair and pepper, but from a distance it just looks black.
Right. Okay.
All right. Anyways,
I mean, Barrett, 5.5 months ago, the 21st of April. Cautiously, taking care with every step, Amin Barrett crept quietly through the trees towards her target. Wouldn't think of them as a man. Couldn't think of them as anything more than an enemy. An obstacle. A problem that needed solving. She kept herself numb. This wasn't the time for emotions. Instincts were her only ally. She had a job to do, but could she do it? To kill would be crossing a line into territory from which there was no return. Well, tough shit. There was no other choice. That was the position she'd landed herself in. She was reaping what she'd sown. Bounty hunters were nothing more than scum. Even worse than the Queen's Guard, because they didn't do what they did out of a misguided sense of duty, or a blind loyalty to the crown. No. They just wanted to line their pockets by any means necessary. Amin was at a crossroads, and death was inevitable. The only question was whose blood she wanted on her hands. In truth, she couldn't live with herself knowing that her actions had cost innocent people their lives. So that was the end of it. The bounty hunter had to go. The angry red glow of the hunters.
And you know, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Exactly, yeah. Well, they are by a lake, so
Yeah.
there is somewhere convenient to go.
Right.
Convenient and hygienic. Shadows as they lay in the darkness. Now or never. Treading lightly as she went, Amin's fingers twitched towards her knife, gripping it so tightly that it hurt. The hunter shifted and she froze. Had he noticed her? No. Switching positions. Do it now, before it's too late. Swiftly closing the distance, Amin prepared to strike. but an explosion of movement caught her by surprise. The hunter was up and barreling towards her. No time to move. The violence of the collision sent her reeling backwards, desperately searching for purchase and not finding any. The air was forced from her lungs as she slammed into the ground. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Why couldn't she get anything right? The hunter towered above her menacingly, and cold fury rolled off him in waves. So this was it. This scruffy, wild-looking bastard with his matted hair and scraggly beard was going.
Okay, I'm sorry. Something is bugging me in the video title, and it's distracting me, so I have to ask Caitlin really quick. Caitlin, is A author tube original, or would Anne be proper?
Be Anne.
It should be Anne.
Yes.
Okay, I knew.
Okay.
I was like, that's not right, and I was sitting there. I was sitting here like, wait.
Okay, I did think that it should be that way, but then I wondered with it being hashtag AuthorTube.
It would still be Anne.
Okay, it just when I said it in my head and hashtag AuthorTube original, it just didn't work in my head.
The hashtag part.
Well, no, I thought most people did when they read it.
You're jerking my chain.
No, I just thought that's what people did. Like when people always say it on TV, where they're like, hashtag this.
You're jerking my gherkin.
I am not. I didn't know that. I didn't know that the hashtag was unspoken.
Well, I mean, I can see why he would.
I'm just gonna process this in the dark.
Well, because people do say,
Yeah, and you've got to remember that I get it read out to me constantly as well.
Yeah.
And that's been my existence for like 6 odd years now. Like of just every day hearing that.
And it might be a cultural thing too. Like your TV is not the same as our TV, so okay, just processing this because it's like. It's like half for me when I see hashtag something. It's like said in a book. It's like invisible to me. My brain immediately shoves it aside. Like I barely recognize it was there. It's like a fly on the wall 100 feet away. It's like if I really look, I can see it, but it's invisible otherwise.
Yeah.
What's brilliant is that my world is hearing those things, but my talkback not reading half of them properly. Because they're all one. Because the tag has to be all one word. It reads it as one bastardized version of the word. It sounds ridiculous most of the time.
That's actually a hilarious concept to think about.
So yes, I just assumed that because I hear it all the time that the hashtag was spoken.
Yeah, I suppose
it's brilliant actually. If you think about it, I've just discovered something about language. Like the way modern day language works, like is a hashtag unspoken, a silent hashtag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean the only people that actually is, all joking and giving you shit aside, that actually is a fairly interesting little thing to dig into, like. Because the only time I love how we've gotten completely off topic, but oh well. The only time I ever hear people say hashtag is when they're like being obnoxious about it, Like they're like, oh my God, hashtag this. And it's like, they're obviously being obnoxious Cali girl walking stereotypes. I never actually hear anyone say hashtag something. Unless they're like telling someone this is the hashtag.
I feel like I've seen that a lot. So yeah, it must just be a cultural thing.
Kate, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, because the only instances and when I've experienced people saying hashtag is usually when they're trying to tell people, hey, this is the hashtag for.
So what I just said.
Blah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy that y'all actually say the hashtag over there. That is.
In all fairness, I don't talk to many people. So it is mainly online interactions that I have. So, like I say, everything is read out to me by a computer, so it reads all that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh man, now I feel like I need to. I feel like I need to, but I'm not going to go on the journey of finding out whether that's a cultural thing or whether it's just a blind person's world thing.
I think it might be the latter, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm leaning that way, so I'm just going to assume until I'm proven wrong. All right, I'm gonna rewind here a bit because I was like literally obsessing over that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I'm actually quite proud of this bit. So, Annie, the air was forced from her lungs as she slammed into the ground. Stupid, stupid, stupid! Why couldn't she get anything right? The hunter towered above her menacingly, and cold fury rolled off him in waves. So this was it. This scruffy, wild-looking bastard with his matted hair and scraggly beard was going to be the one to take her in. Hate ignited for him, for herself, for that self-righteous prick Theodoric and everything that he and his masters stood for. You aren't even half as stealthy as you think you are, stranger. Now state your intentions before I see to it that you never creep up on anybody again. The hunter growled in a voice so hard it could have cut through stone. Now Amin wasn't so sure he was going to take her in. Would he kill her? An image of Celeste flared to life in her mind. No, screw that. She wasn't going to die on her back like a frightened animal. Fuck you, she snarled as she leapt to her feet. Even though the hate burned through her like magma, even though she would happily fight this man until the bitter, bloody end, she had to accept she wasn't a warrior. This might not be I never did this to your stories. I just posted really nice comments the entire time.
I bet if we had live streamed, reacted all of mine like we do yours, you would have.
No, because I'm a respectful British man, and I would have just sat and listened.
You ever get tired?
And you cannot say otherwise without slandering my character, good sir.
Do you ever get tired of lying through your crooked British teeth, Mason?
Never. We're writers. Lying is what we do. Hey guys, here's all the stuff that happened. It didn't really. It's just lying to you, but you like the story, so.
Ryan George has an entire skit about that. All right.
Fight she could win, and right now she couldn't afford to lose. There was too much on the line. Fight or flight. It's simple, just pick one, I mean. She wrestled with the decision, but in the end she chose self-preservation. Muscles coiled. She prepared to run, but something stopped her in her tracks. Doubt crept in. There was something wrong with this picture. The man just didn't look right, and her gut was screaming that she had this all wrong. If you're a bounty hunter, you're not as inept as the rest, but you definitely don't look like one. What are you? Some kind of wild man? 5.5 months ago, the 23rd of April.
What the fuck is going on?
Grief and relief were her.
I said, what the fuck is going on? Like, why are we getting a flashback sequence? I'm just intrigued where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rocks at each other, and Amin was caught in the crossfire, torn between the two, swinging back and forth like a pendulum as she lay there in the dark, long after Evander had fallen into a deep sleep. Grief. For the sister that she missed so much, whose memory she had abused and disrespected with her lies, who deserved far more than to be used as an emotional crowbar. It disgusted Amin that today had come so close. She had almost allowed Evander to walk into Lockbury under false pretenses. The lie had come frighteningly easy that night by the lake. Evander had been nothing more than a dangerously earnest stranger. Amin had crept up on him with fatal intentions.
That's a good line.
Mhm.
Dangerously earnest.
Yeah.
That's good.
I thought you might like that
Oh.
one. How had he reacted? By offering her safety and food. A voice in her mind had whispered that he would help, and so she'd drawn him in with a half-truth. I think we had a drink in unison there.
Wait, you could hear that we had a drink in unison?
Yeah.
And he says he doesn't have a superpower.
Well, I heard mine. I know when I put mine down, and I heard you put one down and do like a just had a drink breath. Yeah. Okay,
I thought you were talking about the fact that me and Kate
all
took a drink.
three of us.
No, man. No, if I could hear that you two had done it simultaneously, that'd be brilliant. Holy shit, yeah.
Well, because we did just
Yeah, I
do
know.
that simultaneously. So that was all three of us, actually. Yeah. Damn. Haha.
Excellent. Chemistry.
I love you guys.
Me too. A liar. A manipulator. A cold, calculating, selfish coward who was willing to put an innocent life on the line, and for what? To help her rescue the other innocent lives that she'd endangered with her reckless convictions. She was every bit as morally bankrupt as the people she claimed to hate. The guilt, shame, and self-loathing had been overwhelming as they'd stood outside of Lockbury. Amin had been taken aback by Evander's horrified reaction to the town. The fight between fear and determination written all over his face. Her conscience had won, right at the last second, just before it was too late. The confession had burst out of her as if the words were afraid she might recapture them. She'd seen the ice-cold rage hardening in his slate-grey eyes, and the clenching of his fists. For a split second she'd wondered if he might lash out, and she would have understood if he had. She felt that she deserved it. After all, what was one more beating if it made up for the deceit? Evander hadn't needed retribution, though. Instead, he'd listened to what she had to say and still chosen to help. Amin had found it so hard to understand why he'd given her a second chance. She knew for a fact that if the roles had been reversed, she wouldn't have done the same thing. That was where the relief came in. As she'd waited in that clearing, she'd been so sure she'd gotten him killed. Hated herself for it. This hadn't been his fight. He'd had no skin in the game. The moment he'd stepped out of those trees had hit her like a punch to the face, and she'd been filled with gratitude. Nobody had died. But that wasn't down to her, and she knew it. Without Evander, the entire thing would have gone to shit, and there was no way she would have walked out of there with her life. That wasn't something she was going to forget anytime soon. 4 months ago.
I mean, it's kind of unbelievable that any of them walked out of there with their lives, if we're all being honest with ourselves.
Yes, but the plot needed to happen, so...
That's one of those tricky buggers about being a writer. It's like, oh, I know this is like a 1 in a million, but like, that's what makes a good story, right?
That's what makes it a story, yeah, because otherwise it's just these people went into the town, they tried to rescue the people, and they died.
Exactly.
And that's the story otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like they say in Doctor Who. 1 in a million chance is still a chance.
Exactly.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Right? Yes.
I gotta take this opportunity while we're stopped to also say, man, once again, just
yeah.
the music production, the sound. It's like, well, just rip my heart out of my ass. Why don't you? You know?
I actually, because I haven't sat and like listened with these headphones on, I actually didn't realize how good it had turned out. Actually, I'm really proud of my narration and the writing. To be honest, I didn't realize how emotional that scene could come across. Yeah, I'm actually quite proud of that. Just processing that now.
Yep, like legitimately, my eyes began to water for a little bit there.
See, I'm always because of what I'm like. I'm always like, oh god, I hope this doesn't come across melodramatic. and I'm like,
yes.
I really want to lean on the emotional aspect of the scene. I just don't want it to be melodramatic. So I'm just glad that I struck the right chord.
See, whereas me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh yeah, this is so fucking melodramatic. I love it.
Man. Oh, that's hilarious because that's kind of how I am when I write stuff.
Yeah.
Emotional. I'm like, I pendulum swing between, oh yeah, this is gonna make them cry, and being like in this idea of, oh god, there's so much cheese here.
Yeah.
So much cheese.
It's all the cheese.
But what's funny is it's always the ones that I feel like have so much cheese that people are all like, oh, this was amazing and it hit me so hard. And I'm like, I felt really awkward writing that. And like, it was just, so much cheese, or just telling the character, will you shut up and stop whining already? Good lord.
And the character and now we're back to that thing where you and other writers have this thing where your characters talk to you, and I'm just like, no, all of my characters are just an extension of me.
Well, I mean,
I actually don't feel like Amin spoke to me that much with all of this. I feel like I had to mine rather than it being her offering this information up, which is fairly interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not really so much that they talk to me in the sense that it's like I'm watching them do stuff, because of how much using my subconscious is. I go into full, I call it going full subconscious, because basically it's like I'm dreaming when I'm writing. So it's like I'm watching all of this stuff happen. And so experiencing them going through stuff, like for instance, Heath in World Next Door having a total freak out when he realizes what he's actually done, and he's like, oh no, my luck is I'm the fuck up and I accidentally drowned myself in the bathtub. I'm in hell now. That's what I've done. And he goes on this entire rant of all of basically now, because apparently eternity is like a bureaucracy and he's probably on some long list and they're never gonna get to him, so he's gonna be like this forever and blah 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 blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, will you shut the fuck up? Like, you're freaking out for no reason, but at the same time I'm also just laughing at how stupid he is because he has it completely wrong.
I wouldn't say I'm quite that well developed.
That's what you call well developed.
It was a diplomatic way of saying it. I could have said crazy, but I'm not that crazy.
So
I love you, really. 4 months ago, the 3rd of May. Evander was struggling for breath, deathly pale and drenched in sweat.
He had just got done plowing the fertile fields.
Deathly pale? I'm sorry, if someone went deathly pale afterwards, I'd be like, we can never do this again.
Right.
Someone pulled a whitey after having sex with me. Yeah, that's not happening again, is it?
Oh.
The sound of him thrashing about had woken Amin, and now she wasn't sure what to do. Indecision had frozen. And I hate you so much. Worked really hard on this chapter, and now you ruined it. You made it sexual, you deviant little mind. I hate you so much. Oh dear.
I'm a red-blooded American. It's all sex, drugs, and rock and roll with me, and bathroom humor. Can't forget the bathroom humor.
Deathly pale and drenched in sweat. The sound of him thrashing about had woken Amin, and now she wasn't sure what to do. Indecision had frozen her in place. What was going on? Should she say something? Do something? Evander, she called softly, but he didn't seem to register it. Moving over to place a hand on his arm, she was forced to leap back again as he struck out at her. She was sure he was going to attack, but as he looked at her, his eyes seemed to focus. Sitting up, he rubbed a tired hand across his face before releasing a long breath. I'm sorry, he croaked. I didn't realize it was you. It's okay, she assured him, but he shook his head. No, it's not. I've been having these dreams for months now, and I'd like to say that I'm getting used to them, but it's pretty clear that I'd be lying. I just wish they'd stop. Amin wasn't sure what to say. The haunted look in Evander's eyes told her something bad had happened. Something awful. But heart-to-hearts had never been her strong suit, and this was uncharted territory. Despite everything, the two of them were still strangers, even if it didn't feel that way. Would it be overstepping to ask if he wanted to talk about it? The last thing she wanted was to make him feel obligated, but she didn't want to seem uncaring either. You can tell me. I'll listen, but only if you want to, she said gently. A silence fell, and she watched his jaw move as if he were chewing his words. It was clear that he was struggling with himself. After opening his mouth, closing it again, and wavering for a few seconds, he blew out another long breath. I don't even know where to start, It's insane, I know it is. We come from completely different worlds, and it's going to sound like nonsense. Like the ramblings of a madman. Whatever it is, I promise I'll listen. But if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. Amin was sure he wasn't going to say anything, and she didn't blame him. Not one bit. It was none of her business. It came out of nowhere in the end, like he couldn't stop himself, and once he started, the words poured out of him. Amin listened with a mounting sense of horror, and when he was done, she sat in dumbstruck silence. It was impossible to meet his gaze, and her eyes were fixed on the cave floor as she traced patterns with her index finger. Words were such empty things. What could she possibly say in response to the story he'd just told her? I'm sorry for your loss. That didn't do it justice, didn't even come close. Amin's life had been ripped apart when Celeste had died, and she'd never been the same. But what Evander had been through? That was unimaginable. As much as she hated what was being done to Lockbury, she couldn't bear the thought of returning to find it burned to the ground. The idea of losing everyone that she'd ever known in an instant was beyond understanding. too much for her to grasp. How had he clung to his sanity through all of that? I can't. This was impossible. How could she communicate the way she felt? Raising her eyes to meet him, she tried to say it without words. Evander looked away for a moment, and when he turned to face her again, she could tell that something had changed. Had letting it out actually helped? Or had he just locked it away again? Amin wasn't sure. Thank you for listening. His voice was soft, barely more than a whisper, and she could tell that he meant it. I've had all of that chasing me around in circles for months. It feels good to say it out loud. To finally tell someone. It wasn't your fault, Evander. Even if you'd been there, I don't think you could have saved them. You probably would have died too. You're still here, and...
Oh yeah, because that's what that's what they want to hear. Oh man.
Well, there isn't. If he was up, like, it's a guy. Well, we're talking about Veldus here and what he did. If Evander had been there, he'd have been dead.
Yeah, I know. It's just not.
And he's walking around and blaming himself, and someone just needs to say to him,
yeah,
like, just needs to put it like that and just be like, it wasn't your fault. You couldn't have done anything.
right.
I know. I don't know. I have this complex, and it's very much a me thing. I'm sure there's other people who have something similar, but I just always feel like there's this set of magic words that you can say that would make the situation better, and you just never know for sure what it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in my heart, I'm just like, in that situation, that wasn't the set of magic words.
Yeah, but her point isn't over either.
Yeah, that's true.
You remember them. That's all we really are in the end. Just memories. We're never truly gone until we're forgotten. I don't think any of them would have blamed you. Maybe you survived for a reason. I needed to hear that. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right. A part of them survives with me. And now with you too. Thank you. Your words mean more to me than I can explain. You'll find, Dale, she assured him with conviction. When you do, I'll hold him. You punch him. The Canary Cage Inn, Minton, the 10th of October. A fist wrapped around Amin's lungs and squeezed. She was suffocating. The hallway was too small, too tight. She needed to get outside. Taking the narrow stairs as quickly as she dared, she crashed through the heavy wooden doors at the bottom and out onto the cobbled street. She ran like she was being chased by a rabid bloodhound. Out of town, into the surrounding farmland, pushing forward over soft earth and dead leaves until her burning muscles wouldn't carry her any further. Slumping breathlessly onto a fallen oak, she dropped her face into her hands, allowing the fear to take control. Slowly, but surely, everything returned to normal. The pressure in her chest and the shaking subsided as cold air filled her lungs. The sky was a lifeless grey, and a fine mist clung to everything. Tears and cold sweat mingled with the drizzling rain as she stared out over the dreary landscape, lost in thought. The dream still lingered on the edges of her consciousness. It was more than a dream. She knew that as surely as she knew her own name. There was an unshakable certainty that something terrible was approaching. Something dangerous, and it terrified her. Now that she'd calmed down, she knew she'd made a mistake. After everything, lying to Evander again had been a difficult decision to make, but it had felt like the right thing to do, because over the last few months he'd made so much progress. He was almost unrecognisable from the broken man she'd first met. His hollow features had filled out. There was a new lustre to his long curls and bushy beard. The haunted look in his eyes was mostly gone now, and the moments of darkness in which he found himself lost inside his head were becoming less and less frequent. He seemed lighter on his feet, and recently he'd been wearing an ever-present smile that reached his eyes even if it wasn't on his lips. It had been so good to watch his spirits rise, especially over the last few days, and the last thing she wanted was to drag him back down, but was that her decision to make? Shouldn't she have told him everything? At the end of the day, a lie by omission was still a lie, but she'd needed space and time to think, to work out what it all meant. The man, with his unyielding eyes boring into hers. Dark days ahead. His voice had boomed all around her as a thick spray of dark blood spilled from his mouth and coated his chin. The shadow, reaching out and swallowing the sky, getting closer like a bird of prey swooping in. The jagged fissures that had formed in the earth and spread towards her. Blood had poured out of them, turning the green grass a rusty red and forming thick pools, with figures contorting within them. That was the part she hadn't told Evander, because she knew what it would mean to him. There was a night, not too long after Celeste had been killed, when Amin had been visited by their mother. At the time, she'd dismissed it as grief and nothing more. There was no great beyond, no better place. There was life, and then there was death. That's what she'd always believed. Even after that day, she tried to convince herself that there was a logical explanation. Psych! Being her mother.
You thought death was the end. What a chump.
Yeah, brilliant. Sat at the end of her bed, with so much love and concern etched onto her face, had felt so true. It had felt the same way when she'd opened her eyes to see the man from her dream standing beside the window in their room, but not the exact same way. Where her mother had radiated an energy that Amin found warm and comforting, the man burned with a razor-sharp fury. He felt dangerous, but somehow Amin knew that his words had been a warning, not a threat. The solid had been the same way. Where her mother had radiated an energy that true. It had felt the same way when she'd opened her eyes to see the man from her dream standing beside the window in their room, but not the exact same way. Where her mother had radiated an energy that Amin found warm and comforting, the man burned with a razor-sharp fury. He felt dangerous, but somehow Amin knew that his words had been a warning, not a threat. The solid, observable reality that Amin had always known had slammed into a world she didn't quite understand. Evander had been right. The story he'd told her that night in the cave had been insane. Vengeful spirits, dark omens, and a man who should have died but didn't. The problem was, there'd been no hint of a lie in his words, and she believed him. Now, more than ever. There was no way around it. Whether she wanted to or not, she had to tell him everything. It wasn't her place to decide what he was strong enough to handle. The streets were busy by the time she trudged back into town an hour later, and the mouth-watering aroma of freshly baked bread, warm pastry...
No, you don't play happy music after that. What are you doing?
It's not happy music, it's walking back into town music.
That's happy music.
Okay, I just thought it was cool music. Pastries and cinnamon rolls from the Hardwell family bakery.
How would you describe this music?
Pleasant.
Made her stomach grumble. Checking her pockets, she groaned as she found them empty. With a frustrated sigh, she turned and weaved her way back towards the canary cage to collect her coin pouch. The crowd...
Unlike most men, hers was detachable.
Oh my god.
I hate you so much. Just you wait till next time we do something of your work. I'm going to make it all about sex and penises.
It'll be much easier with my work.
Yeah, because your work is all about sex and penises.
Right.
and who's getting delges. Let's face it, we're not there for the world building. We just want to see who delge fucks next.
Or, well, at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Parted as a horse-drawn coach emerged from the swirling mist ahead. People whistled and waved their greetings, and Amin observed their enthusiasm with fascination. If this was who she thought it was, then the one they called Boss Man had returned from his business. Interesting. She'd been eager to put a face to the name, to see if the man lived up to the hype surrounding him, but her stomach gave another insistent growl as she watched the coach trundling towards the town square. Bossman could wait. For now it was time to grab some food and find Evander. "Morning," a man called as they crossed paths. It was Baxter, and she groaned inwardly. Offering him a small wave, she powered ahead. Bax was nice enough, but she definitely wasn't in the mood to talk to him right now. Tired, cold, and hungry was not a good combination, and she just didn't have the patience to deal with him. Their room was empty when she arrived, but Evander wouldn't be hard to find. If he wasn't downstairs getting food, he'd be putting himself to work. Busy minds create busy hands. That's what Celeste used to say, and Evander had one of the busiest minds of anyone she'd ever met. Give him any more than half a second to himself, and he'd be a million miles away. Lockbury had been a mess, drawn far too much heat. They'd kept their heads down for a while, until hiding away had made them both restless. When Evander had finally suggested moving on, Amin had been nervous. They were wanted. Somebody could turn them in. In the end, they'd agreed to move about, never staying in one place for too long. But Evander wasn't content to be a casual observer, and they'd ended up doing odd jobs and small favours everywhere they went. Amin leaned heavily upon the dressing table, palms down, as she gazed out of the window over the rain-soaked landscape to the Brathwell farm in the distance and the new barn they'd helped to build. Minton had rekindled a fire inside Evander, and it burned brighter every day. Having a community around him again had been good for him, giving him something to live for. It was unfair that the dream would come to her now and threaten to disrupt everything. Shaking her head to dismiss the niggling worry, Amin grabbed her coin pouch and headed for the door. So you ruined it for me now. I'm never going to be able to write coin pouch again, you cockwad. I'm going to have to call it a money bag from now on. 12.
Well, you can't say that because then I'm just gonna imagine a cartoon burlap sack bag with a dollar sign written on it.
just Evander and Amin walking around with one of them each slung over their shoulders.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Special delivery, said Amin 20 minutes later, nudging Evander with her foot to get his attention. A smile of pure delight crossed his face as he looked up from the wagon he was inspecting to see Amin's arms laden with brown paper bags. "This one's just for you. Hope you're hungry," she smirked as she handed him the largest bag. "Mrs. Hardwell thinks you're too thin. I've been given strict instructions to fatten you up. She says she can't bear to see an hard-working man go hungry. Personally, I reckon she just hates you and she's trying to feed you to death." "Wouldn't be hard at this rate," he somehow managed to say through a mouthful of carrot cake.
The opposite.
"I'm telling you, Amin."
Carrot cake? Who the fuck eats carrot cake?
I don't know.
Ugh.
I don't know.
Dreadful stuff.
But
I just tried to think of something that seemed like something they would have in like the bakery.
Yeah.
Didn't want to say chocolate cake and have someone be like, well, chocolate, and I don't know. I was just like, right, okay, carrot cake seems traditional. It's autumny around there at the minute. Carrot cake seems autumny to me. Just made sense.
Plus, they seem like a farming community, so yeah. That was definitely suiting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's unrealistic. I'm saying carrot cake is gross.
Yeah, I agree. Did you appreciate my mouthful acting?
Yes, yes,
yeah,
I
that
did.
was pretty good.
I didn't actually have anything in my mouth. I did try it with something in my mouth to see if it would sound funnier, but it didn't. So I just did it with, and then
What
I
did
just
you
did
have
it.
in your mouth?
I just positioned my jaw in a way that the words came out like that.
No. When you tried it with something in your mouth, what did you put in your mouth?
Food.
Of course.
I was being method.
Like he was hoping.
It was actually carrot cake. I was fully committed to the part. I went out and bought myself a slice of carrot cake, and I did a number of takes whilst I made my way through the carrot cake.
Oh my God.
None of them were serviceable.
I did. I also tried with an eclair, but that was even worse. So I had to move to the custard cream. But in the end, I was forced to accept that I just needed to do it without anything in my mouth. But at least I ate a lot of cake, so that's good.
Right? Yeah, that is good.
He never even thought to try his boyfriend's penis.
Never crossed my mind.
I'm such an asshole.
Oh my God.
I am such a prick.
It's okay though, because I'm just perfectly willing to just be like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. I'm sure she's probably got one somewhere. I can't satisfy her all the time.
Oh, that's I love the insinuation that she's the man in the relationship.
See, to me it was a joke about dildos, but there we go.
Well, I mean, it could be both. Jokes are like onions.
Well, yes, jokes are multifaceted because it could also be she's cheating on me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With an alien.
With an alien? All right, anyways.
There's magic at play. He paused to swallow and wiped his mouth on his sleeve. One day, people will come here from all around the world just to get their hands on Mrs. Hardwell's legendary baked goods. Children will tell tales. Fights will break out over who gets the last slice of cake. That's if there's anything left for anyone else, which there won't be if I have anything to say about it. I've never met anyone so passionate about cake. Amin teased as she perched on the wagon to devour her own food. It really was good. Mouthfuls of pure bliss. Market day had arrived, and she watched people flock from stall to stall as she ate. Bargains were being hunted and deals were being struck. Everything, from fresh fruit and veg, preserves and hot food, to handcrafted trinkets, weapons, clothing and livestock were on offer. Despite the buzz of excitement, a nervous anticipation filled the space between herself and Evander, both of them knowing they needed to talk, neither one wanting to be the first to go. Come on then, Amin sighed, after swallowing the last mouthful of warm, flaky pastry. I'll help you finish up. I was hungry while I wrote this. I was really craving hot food. Warm, flaky pastry.
Yep.
We need to talk about it. The square was heaving with people by the time they were done. Barely enough room to move. Originally, that line was bodies rather than people, and I was like, no, I don't think I like the sound of that.
It was heaving with bodies. It's like, they're all dead.
Exactly, yeah. I was like, no, that's way more of a Valdez chapter thing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So many voices clamouring to be heard was getting a bit ridiculous and slightly overwhelming. Taking a step back to inspect Mr. Fullman's earthenware display, Amin nodded her approval. Mr. Fullman bellowed his thanks as he passed them both a handful of coins. Evander offered him a cheery wave as they walked away.
The Godfather is one of the most overrated movies of all time.
Bumping and barging their way through the tightly packed... I'm sorry? Would you like to contextualise that for me, please?
Nope.
Crowd wasn't easy, and Amin sighed with relief as they reached the far end of the square and turned onto Woolston Street. As they walked, Amin tried to assess Evander's mood, but his face was impassive. Not a good sign. When he was relaxed and happy, Evander was easy to read. It was when something was on his mind that he became stoic and quiet. After a few minutes, they found a bench beneath the golden brown canopy of 2 birch trees and sat side by side. The street was quiet with most people at the market, and a tension rippled between the two of them. Evander stared down at a cracked cobblestone, rubbing a thoughtful hand through his beard, before turning to face Amin with an expression that made her instantly nervous. "I've been thinking," he said seriously.
Dangerous
Amin's
pastime.
pulse
Yes.
quickened, her mouth dry. This isn't going to be good. When you told me what you saw this morning, it felt familiar. Like you were describing one of my own dreams. We can't know for sure what it meant, but my instincts are screaming at me, Amin. I don't know how or why, but I think it had something to do with Doyle. I'm pretty sure it did, she told him quietly. I wish it didn't, but I saw the ground bleeding and I don't know what else that could mean. I didn't tell you earlier because you've been happy and I don't want this to fuck it up for you. But that's not how it works. You've got every right to know, and if something's coming, you need to be prepared. Relief flooded her system as Evander nodded his understanding and took her hand softly in his. I already know what you'll say, but this is important, he said with a solemn expression. I know how you feel about what happened when we first met, but the way I see it, you did the right thing in the end. The road ahead is dangerous. I don't even fully understand what I'm up against, but I won't turn aside. I can't. Sooner or later, the gods will bring Doyle and I together. What happens after that is anybody's guess. Maybe I'll find a way to stop him, maybe I won't. Either way, one of us will die. You gave me a choice, Amin, and now I have to do the same thing. If you want to walk away now, I won't blame you. I'll understand completely. This isn't your fight. You have no skin in the game. And whatever you might think, you don't owe me anything. You don't have to allow yourself to get caught up in all of this. A wave of anger washed over Amin. Why did the world have to be like this? Evander was so sure that his gods had a plan. But if that was the case, she hated them. It was cruel that things had to play out the way they did to bring the two of them together. She knew that wherever he went, Evander would always walk in the shadow of Valdez Doyle. She got that, respected it, but there was no way she was going to let him face it alone. I'm not going anywhere, she said simply. I know you're not. His smile was warm, but his eyes held a half-hidden fear. Amin squeezed his hand and shuffled along the bench towards him. Whatever happens now, I made my choice, she told him firmly. You gave me the chance to walk away, and I made my choice, just like you did. She brushed a loose curl from his solemn face. The look he gave her triggered a chain reaction, and suddenly she couldn't help herself. She leaned in, and their lips met, soft and gentle, hesitant at first, but deepening quickly. His fingers traced delicately along her wrist and up her arm. the sensation causing her pulse to quicken eagerly.
God,
For a few seconds, nothing else mattered. This was exactly where she wanted to be. Resting a hand upon his chest, she savoured the moment, taking the time to commit every detail to memory. The spell was abruptly broken by the sound of a nearby cough, and Amin groaned inwardly as she pulled away. Evanda's face was flushed, and she resisted the urge to lean in again. A tall brunette stood a few feet away, looking uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to interrupt, it's just the mayor would like to see you," she said awkwardly. "Right now, if that's convenient." "No problem," said Evander with a puzzled expression. "Just
people always
lead the way."
Interrupt stuff.
I know, right?
What did you think of that bit then?
Me being a fucking child aside, it was good.
Yes.
It was good.
Thank you. That was the bit that was like, right, I have to do this now, because I can't have this exchange happen the way that it does and not have them kiss, because if I do that, it's just going to get into just kiss already territory, and it's just like, right,
yeah,
just do it now.
I will say though, sometimes I like the running gag of like they're about to kiss and something happens. Sometimes that's a good running gag.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't mind it I don't mind it if they want to. I hate it when two characters are just completely oblivious of the fact that they like each other, and you're just like, just kiss already. I know you're gonna make me wait 3 seasons of this show before these or fucking Bones, where it's like so clear that they're in love, and you just have to wait 6 seasons for them to finally get their fucking acts together. Oh my god.
Right.
Right. There's like sexual tension from episode 1, and
It's like, just do it already. God,
you so clearly want to. Just fucking putting your heads together in a minute. Jesus. Without a word, the woman turned and strode quickly up the cobbles back towards the square. Talk about bad timing. Amin had been wondering if she'd get the chance to meet Boss Man for days. She wanted the chance to figure him out, but not right now. "We're not done here," she told Evander quietly. "I'd be disappointed if we were. We should probably try to focus right now, though. Yes, serious business. Off to see the mayor. Worst timing ever. Will you stop it? You're going to make me laugh, and we need to make a good impression." The brunette cast a quizzical look over her shoulder at the two of them, and Amin waved to show that they were still coming. With a great effort, she locked the last few minutes away for later. Evander was right. This was serious business.
Serious mode.
Time to focus.
Serious mode.
Serious mode.
Boss Man's office was quietly fancy. It was neat and tidy.
Quietly
Subtle
fancy.
hints of ginger and vanilla hung in the air. The pale autumn sun peeked in through a large window, soaking the room in its soft amber glow. A well-stocked bookshelf ran the length of one wall. A map took up another. The man himself was sat behind a walnut writing desk that was polished to perfection. He was lost in thought, eyes scanning some sort of document as they took their seats across from him. Time ticked by as he kept on reading, never sparing them so much as a glance. The short, stocky stature, clean-shaven face, and salt-and-pepper hair was not what Amin had been expecting. The image she'd built up in her mind was of an imposing, bald-headed, rough-and-ready type, a grisly powerhouse rather than a baby-faced intellectual. Just as Amin was starting to feel impatient, he gave a quick nod and put the document to one side. Opening a drawer, he pulled out a cigarette and a box of matches, lit up, and leaned back in his dark leather chair. "Here's a funny story. You'll probably enjoy it. I did," he said, shrugging casually as he looked between the two of them. "Couple of months back, I'm up in Lockbury, and I hear about this right ruckus. Big deal it was. See, 2 members of the Queen's Guard, they get knocked out by these outlaw types who nick off with their gear and crash a public execution. Got away with it scot-free and all. Left a right mess. The powers that be...
Oh, man. Oh, golly. Oh, jeez.
They ain't happy, are they? Nah, mate, course not, because it don't look good, does it? When two people can make the entire town guard look like a massive bunch of useless twats. Pretty embarrassing, really.
So, Boss Man is definitely British.
Shit. Amin clamped down on a sudden surge of adrenaline. Evander remained unmoved, but she could feel a tension in his leg as it rested against hers. She nudged it gently, trying to signal that they should stay calm. Bossman regarded them both evenly, smoke drifting lazily around him. Didn't think anything of it at the time, he mused. Nah, didn't pay that much attention because I don't really give a shit. Not my business, is it? Got more important stuff to be getting on with. So it goes to the back of my mind, and I forget all about it. Anyway, I get back from my little business trip today, and I hear about some new faces in town. That's surprising, that is, because we don't really get visitors round here, but you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, do you? Dead nice. That's what everyone says about them. Really helpful. Can't sing the praises enough. I talked to Mrs. Hardwell, done her, because she's a good un, and I always stop in on her after a trip. Home comforts, innit? Can't beat 'em. She's right taken with these strangers. Tells me all about how they ran a delivery up from Brathwell Farm for her. Says they've been coming in every day, which is good, because she thinks the bloke's too thin, but I just laughed at that, because Robin thinks everyone's too thin. It's the same with everyone I talk to. Naught but good words to be said, and I'm thinking, I've got to introduce myself. But then for some reason, out of nowhere, I start thinking about Lockbury. And BAM! The crack of his palm against the desk was unexpected, but they gave him nothing. If he wanted to rattle them, he'd have to try harder than that. Amin was dying to look at Evander to gauge his reaction, but now wasn't the time. Boss Man knew who they were.
Cool
that much
customers.
That's right. It's like, we're going to play this cool.
It's like we're so cool
Yep.
right now.
I think it's justified by this next line, I think. It was clear. But they'd already be on a prison barge if he was going to turn them in. No, he wanted something. But what? Keeping her breathing steady and her expression neutral, she waited for him to just get on with it. I've heard all about you, mate, said Bossman, with a finger levelled at Amin. Oh yeah, you're a bad un, Amin Barrett. At least that's what the law says, but that's a bit black and white, innit? Bit simplistic. See, that's the thing, I'm all about the nuance, me. Minton's a great place to hide out. Right on the edge of the kingdom, away from prying eyes. No one gives a shit what goes on out here. Not right now, anyway. The thing is, I know what you're about and what you do. What I don't know is why. It's a right dangerous business, robbing from the crown. They're absolutely itching to get a noose around your neck. What I'd like to know is why you did it in the first place. I mean, don't you think he's got an interesting name? Evander cut in. What I'd like to know is, who called you boss man first? Was it you or them? Now that is a good question. Bossman turned his bright, chestnut eyes on Evander and gave him a broad smile. I like it, because it cuts right down to the core of my character, doesn't it? What kind of man am I? Do I command respect or do I earn it? That is a razor-sharp question, mate. Well done.
I feel like commanding respect and earning it is a semantic difference in the context of the conversation, though.
It's just, has he told them to call him boss man? Or do they just call him that because...
Yeah, I understand that. But when you're talking about the dynamic of a person who has respect,
Mm-hmm.
when you're making I feel like there is no actual distinguishment between commanding respect and earning respect, because either way you get the respect. The result is the same. Commanding that respect, it and earning it, because if the people respect you, then there's something to respect.
I disagree, just because I feel like it's one of those things, like it's like badass. Boss man isn't something you introduce yourself as, to, hi, yeah, nice to meet you, I'm boss man.
Right. It's something that everyone else calls you.
I understand the point you're making. I'm merely saying that in the context of the concept of having people's respect, semantically, commanding respect and earning respect are the same thing to me. That might just be a me thing.
It could be because of the fact that, in order to be able to legitimately command respect, you first must earn it.
Right. Exactly. You can't make people respect you. If you try to make people respect you, they instantly hate you.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's demanding respect.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, that's the word I should have used. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. You don't have to apologize. I'm merely raising the point that, because when you command respect, people, it's that implies that people feel compelled to respect you.
Yeah, I just chose the wrong word. I should have gone with demand. I can change that for the printed version. There's always going to be bits and bobs that are different between the audiobook and the printed version when that eventually happens. So I can change that word.
Now I feel like Mason feels browbeat.
Oh no, I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, because I never want to make you feel like I'm shitting on you. It's just this is,
No, and I'm not the best writer ever, and occasionally I get stuff wrong, and I appreciate, just pointing it out like that just means that I don't do it again next time. So I don't think that it detracts from the quality of the overall story.
No.
So it's just one of those things that you can just change, and I can learn from going forward. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. It's not a big structural issue at all. It's definitely a nitpick. But see, that's one of the things I've been telling you from the get go. The fact that I can only ever find nitpicks to critique in your writing is one of the reasons I say you're a good writer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry to disappoint you, but it's fairly simple, mate. No big mystery about it. My dad was Minton, born and bred. Lived on a farm just outside of town as a kid. Dirt poor he was, but he didn't let that stop him. Ambitious he was. Big dreams, that man. He met me mum up in Lockbury, and she moved out here to marry him, which her folks weren't best pleased about. But he gave her a good life, worked his fingers to the bone. In the end, he ran that old mine before it got shut down, and the workers called him boss man. The way people round here see it, it was me dad what looked after him when the Great North Canal rendered us fucking useless and the Crown forgot all about us. When he died, too young I might add, people started calling me boss man as a sign of respect to him. Makes me old mum smile too, which is nice. I don't feel like I deserve it, to be honest. I'm not even half the man he was, but that's not up to me. I've just got to live up to it and hope that one day it feels like I've actually earned it. I think we all have someone we want to make proud, said Evander earnestly. Amin nodded in genuine agreement. That hadn't been the answer she was expecting.
That's a great bit of dialogue from Boss Man there. That's a great bit of dialogue. That's world building, character building, characterization, and compelling dialogue all rolled into one.
Thank you. that genuinely means a lot to me, because I really enjoyed writing this scene, so I'm glad you feel like that.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what good dialogue is made of right there.
And you can tell that you enjoyed it also because of how well everything turned out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gazing out of the window at the bustling market below, she considered the question that Bossman had asked. I did what I did because I wanted to help, she said. Her mouth was dry, and the words wouldn't come easily, but she forced them out anyway. I wanted to be like your dad. I wanted to look after people. That's what I told myself, but it was bullshit. It was personal. I wanted to help, but not as much as I wanted payback for my sister. I was being selfish, and I did a lot of shit that I regret. I'd like to say that I've moved past it all, but I haven't. I hate them, and I just can't see that being something that I'll ever let go of. I respect that. Honesty, self-reflection. Can't have been easy to say, but it was what I was hoping to hear, said Boss Man with a warm smile. We've got a friend in common, me and you. Mr. James Wilcox is my cousin. We're not that close, but we do have a good catch-up whenever I go up to Lockbury. Gives me all the gossip, doesn't he? That's how I heard about you two. He said you were right down the line. When I realised it were you in town, I was hoping he was right. I won't doubt him again. They like you round here. You made a good impression. As far as I'm concerned, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. You'll have no trouble. The sun had crept a little further into the room now, and the tension in the air was gone. There was a strange expression on Bossman's face.
God, I wish I'd fucking vocalized it, because you know what I was gonna say?
What?
You know what I was like, this is the conversation where this town becomes like base of operations.
Yeah.
God, I wish I'd said it, but then I fucking.
I believe you. I promise.
I believe you.
I swear.
Face as he lit up another cigarette. Amin thought there was an ambivalence in his eyes, as if he was fighting with something. Emotions bubbling to the surface before being snatched back. They sat in silence as he weighed up whatever decision he was trying to make, and then his face turned serious. I've got plans. Big things coming to this region if I play me cards right, he told them quietly, as though still unsure of himself. I'm currently in negotiations with two other towns, Tunstall and Clearwater. Tunstall's right out on the southeast border, built up on the GNC near the Queen's Reservoir. There's a Queen's Guard outpost there, and the captain, a bloke by the name of Melford, is a right bastard. Walks round like he's Billy Big Bollocks, treats the town like it's his, causes all sorts of trouble. His boys follow suit, don't they? Of course they do. High-ranking officer like that setting a bad example. What else are they going to do? The Crown's got its eyes set on expanding into the southeast, and the QGs are stationed there as scouts. A couple of months back, James gets a placement there, and we've been keeping in touch. According to him, they want a town built on the coast within the decade. They've recently made an official declaration of intent. The Queen's graciously allowing 1 year for a challenger to appeal, and if no one speaks up, the Northern Kingdom gets a whole new county to play with. It's a sham though, innit? There's no one down there with enough power to stand up to her, so it's a done deal already. Clearwater's about a day's ride outside the current border. I reckon they're going to do quite well for themselves once they become our newest neighbours. They're in a prime location, big river that cuts right down to the coast, and a forest not far away. The mayor of Tunstall's a good mate of mine, and we figure it's better to show Clearwater some friendship now. Mutually beneficial, innit? Between the three towns, we've got fishing and farming, lumber, coal and clay easily available. If we can form a working relationship that's ready to go when the expansion happens, I reckon we can turn this region into something special, instead of just being the forgotten arse end of the kingdom. Now they were getting to it. The dancing around was out of the way, and he was finally ready to cut the shit and get to the point. Whatever it was, Amin could tell it was going to be big. He was clearly building up to something. Bossman was leaning forward with his elbow.
Is Bossman about to ask them to assassinate this guard captain, Caitlin?
Possibly. That's what it sounds like.
This bastard's in the way. He's getting everything all fucked. I need him dead.
Was resting on the desk, and there was an intensity in his eyes now. Amin wasn't sure what to make of it. Where's this going? What do you want? Sneaking a curious glance at Evander, she saw him listening with rapt attention. His face was impassive as he ran a thoughtful hand through his beard. Is that good or bad? Things are going well. We're getting close to a deal, but Clearwater's having problems, and they've asked us for a favour as a sign of good faith and all that, Bossman continued. The QGs have been using Clearwater as their own personal playground. They go down there to unwind and have a bit of fun, don't they? They've been intimidating locals, picking fights, destroying property, all sorts of nasty business. They've even been stealing from them and calling it a preemptive tax. According to James, it's all being spearheaded by Malford because he thinks he's untouchable, but he ain't. Nah, mate, because his big ego's been ruffling the wrong feathers in Alborough, and one big fuck-up could see him thrown out on his arse. For this thing with the 3 towns to work, Malford's got to go. So where do we come in? Asked Amin, although she thought she already knew the answer. He wants us to take the fall for whatever scheme they come up with, said Evander with a cynical smile. Minton and Tunstall can't be seen to get involved in case it blows up in their faces, but we've already been named enemies of the Crown. It's not going to get any worse for us. They already want us dead. If we agree to be scapegoats, everyone else gets to keep their hands clean and Clearwater gets what they want, which gets the Alliance off to a good start. It's a clever plan, I'll give you that. You know what, mate? I like you, said Bossman, with a deferential nod to Evander, but there was a hint of some indecipherable emotion in his eyes. Straight to the point, no nonsense. I respect that. I'll spare you the bullshit sales pitch. I want this partnership to work, and Clearwater wants Melford gone. It's non-negotiable. If and when he gets the boot, he'll be replaced by a 2-star called Roberts, who by all accounts is a much more agreeable bloke. The Crown might not give a shit about us right now, but that means we get left alone, and the last thing I want is to be the one that draws unwanted attention this way if things go pear-shaped. Sort of defeats the point, doesn't it?
Go pear-shaped?
Yeah, if something goes pear-shaped.
Is that a thing that people say?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's basically when,
everything's going wrong. Oh, everything's going right pear-shaped today.
On pear-shaped, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, see, I don't think I've heard that. I always hear things go sideways.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I always try to keep that sort of stuff.
It's kind of an antiquated term, but I use it.
Well, it's used around here a lot, in all fairness. So I like to keep that sort of thing because I feel like it gives the character a bit more, I feel like it helps with the dialogue to just have them talk like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and considering, it's, like I said, it is more of an older expression for things going cattywampus.
Not as old as Cattywampus.
Yeah, right.
All right, anyway.
I've been trying to wrap my head around this for weeks, but I hadn't a clue how to get it done until today. I'll level with you. You're right on the money. With the position you pair are in, I need you. Amin sat quietly for a moment, mulling it all over. Part of her was pissed off. Despite Bossman's warm smile and friendly demeanour, all he really wanted was to use them. At the same time, that made sense. It was logical. He was clearly an idealistic man, and maybe his big dreams were just pie in the sky. But if this partnership was as promising as he seemed to think it was, then Amin could see how much it could help people in the long run. Getting involved was dangerous, but it was also tempting. Bossman was right. They were in a unique position. The Crown already wanted them dead, and wasn't it worth a bit more heat if it gave the 3 towns a chance? Amin thought it was, and she suspected Evander would probably agree, but this wasn't a knee-jerk reaction sort of thing. They needed to take the time to think this through, needed to be cautious, rather than blundering in on an impulse. We're going to need some time to discuss this, said Evander, and Amin...
I was hoping Evander was about to be like, we're in.
Yeah.
I did think about that, but...
That's what dolls would do. Yeah. Dolls would be like, we're in.
I sort of wanted to show that they're on the same page, Like she was thinking, yeah, we need some time to think about it. And then Evander says it too, and it's like, right, they're on the same page.
Right. Yeah, I get that. And it's consistent with Evander's character too. So I'm not knocking the choice. I'm just it would have just been
Yeah, it's two
what I
completely
wrote.
different but equally good ways of doing it.
Yeah. Well, I actually, in this case, I'm not sure it would have been equally good because if you had Evander say we're in, it would have been out of character. It would have taken some serious justification from him to make that make sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like it still would have been out of character for Amin because I was trying to show with this chapter that she's like grown a bit from.
Right. Which you have done, yeah.
Good.
He's like, good.
Yeah, he's like, yeah.
And offered him a thumbs up under the table. It's just not a decision that we can make lightly. I'm sure you understand. If he doesn't, he can find someone else to be his patsy. Yeah, of course. It ain't something you can be hasty about, I understand that, Bossman agreed, as he checked an ornate-looking pocket watch. We should probably wrap this up now anyway. I've got another meeting in about 20 minutes. Let's get together in a couple of days, and you can tell me where you're at. If you're in, we'll iron out the details. Until then, you can do what you like. I'll have a cab take you back to the canary cage if you want. They politely declined his offer, choosing instead to walk back through the bustling streets in the dappled light of the autumn sun. Amin's mind was churning as they strolled along in thoughtful silence, with life unfolding all around them. A family happily sipping hot drinks at an outdoor cafe, a group of gangly teenage boys kicking a ball between them, a wagon driver roaring impatiently at a bunch of nattering old-timers huddled together in the middle of the street. There was no way of knowing for sure what Minton would become in the future, but Amin could see its potential and felt that it could be something special. Whether or not they chose to get involved in Bossman's little conspiracy, she hoped he could deliver on his promises. He was a strange man. Amin wasn't sure whether or not she liked him, whether she trusted him or thought that he was full of shit. Either way, they'd probably find out soon enough. There was a chill in the air by the time they arrived at the canary cage, and Evander immediately got to work lighting the fire in their room. Amin felt her mind begin to wander as she watched him. He looked good, with his loose curls dangling over his face and the sleeves of his dark red shirt rolled up to the elbows. When he turned to face her, opening his mouth to say something, she gave a little shake of her head to stop him. Not now, she told him quietly, as she used one of his braces to pull him closer. Their lips met again, but this time there was an intensity to the kiss. It deepened as Evander wrapped his arms around her waist, pulled her tight against him, slid a hand up her back and into her hair. She lost herself in the moment, the rest of the world falling away and leaving just the two of them. She bit his bottom lip gently and then pulled away with a suggestive smile. I told you we weren't done, she whispered in his ear. Everything else could wait. They could talk about it later. For now, Amin wanted to make up for lost time. They should have done this weeks ago.
And then they
And then they fall. Exactly. Exactly the intention of that scene.
The glee on your face was perfect.
Okay. All right. I have got to take a merry tinkle. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then we'll get his thoughts because I'm interested.
I hope everything comes out all right.
Actually, you know what?
What?
I think this needs to be more than a merry tinkle.
Oh dear, Jeremy. Ah.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh my.
I've heard of a piss break in a podcast. I've never heard of a poo break.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know how things have been the last couple of days. I don't know what's going on. His tummy's been a bit wobbly, so.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I really.
You shouldn't have taken him to insert restaurant name here.
Right. Oh gosh. No, it's not even been that though. It's just in like the last few days for some reason. I think it may be all the vitamin D he's been taking, but we're not sure.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. Strange things. Just really funny because last night we were on stream last night, and the bathroom is right behind me, like right over my shoulder.
Yeah.
On the other side of the bookshelf. And so I'm sitting here, keeping everybody entertained as best as I can, and hearing over my shoulder what was going on in there, and just thinking, oh gosh, I
I really hope they can't hear that on stream.
Right. It's like, is it that kind of a situation where everybody can actually hear what's going on stream, but no one is saying anything? Or
at least I would tell you. I'd be like, dude,
yes.
I can hear that, and you should probably turn the mic off for a bit.
Right, yeah. It's like, oh my god. But yeah. Oh.
So what were your thoughts on that then?
Oh, I thought that was great. I really like how you were able. Oh man, that first part with the flashbacks and the fact that you punctuated it with the date change. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but I like that in stories.
Yeah, me too.
Especially if I'm consuming them via audio. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to describe the feeling. It piques my curiosity more.
Yeah, it gets that part of your brain involved. It's like, right, okay, I need to remember this date.
Yes.
So eventually, by the end of it, you have like a timeline of events.
Yeah, and I think that's something that comes from having consumed and written so many like mysteries and things like that. So
that would make sense because I'm the same. So
yeah, because when they punctuate it or prefix it with like a date or a time or a number, kind of like in a lot of Stephen King stuff I've been listening to recently, he's divided stuff by numbers in different things, and it's not necessarily that it was a date or that it was actually the chapter number. It's just, like number this thing. And I'm like, hey, why? Like, what are you? Why are you doing that? But yeah, I like little details like that. And I like the fact that you've shown how much Amin has grown as a character, as far as not being as impulsive, and in a way being able to show, even without there really being any kind of dialogue or anything seriously alluding to this other than just interaction, you were able to show that it was because of the influence of her being around Evander.
Awesome. That is such a good feeling to hear that. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I know you know how good that feels. So
yeah, because I'm like, how, like, I would ask you, like, how were you able to do that? But I'm pretty sure you don't have a definitive answer.
No.
For how you were able to do that.
No, I guess I just tried to think of, what could have motivated her to do what she did in the first place, and sort of tried to contextualize all those feelings from it, like, like all that anger towards the crown because of what happened to Celeste,
Right.
and like that sort of impulsiveness that can come from like heartbreak and anger.
Yeah.
And then Evander and Amina are very much on sort of like a healing journey together, and they've got. I feel like I've done a fairly good job of showing that they've both got things that they can't let go of,
Yes.
but they respect that about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's never going to be like, oh, you just need to let the Valdestoyle thing go, because she would never just let the thing with the crown go. And he knows that she thinks that, and she knows that he thinks that, and it's just, I really like that about the dynamic.
Yeah. I also really like that about the dynamic too, because it makes them truer characters. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of fiction and whether it's literary or just TV shows and stuff, now it's got this formulaic thing where people have to contrive conflict just wherever, and for some odd reason in areas like that just seems to be their favorite scab to pick, is to just turn people into non-empathetic arseholes.
Yeah.
And the fact that you didn't do that with that, and you allowed them to actually be people that were of the level of maturity they would be in that kind of a setting, was really, really refreshing.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, because I was like, yes, okay, real people here. Awesome.
I just wanted it to be like, I wanted to show that since they've met, they're both better, but they're not, they're not magically fixed. Like, it's not one of those things where it's like, I really didn't want it to come across as one of those romances where it's just like, here's two tortured people, and then they find each other and they're all better.
Right, exactly, because that's not how it works. And so the fact that, you're allowing it to be kind of a slow burn situation, I think is really great, because like I said, it makes it truer. So
I like the part where I made it about dicks and penises.
Yeah, me too, sort of.
But in all seriousness, what I'm continuing to like is there's a, what is pattern the right word? Yeah, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the word pattern. There's a pattern that certain types of stories follow. And the pattern has variations, and you can move certain beats to other parts and switch things around. But the pattern, there's like a primary pattern, and then there's variations of it.
Yeah, there's that whole thing of like, there's only 7 stories you can actually tell.
Yeah, exactly. Except that's bullshit. But
right, exactly.
That's why I said theory.
Yeah. But there is a pattern that certain types of stories take. And the type of story I'm talking about is the type of story that's typically told in like fantasy RPG games. Final Fantasy VII, actually every Final Fantasy that I've played is a good example, but also my book and your book. And you're using a you're using a pretty typical pattern, but the thing that you're doing that's kind of unique is the amount of draw out you're doing I feel, is fairly unique, and especially the pattern of events and the beats that you're choosing to put in the order you're putting them in, and the amount it's the fact that you're taking the amount of time between the beats that you are doing and still managing to keep it compelling and interesting, mostly in my opinion through compelling characterization and world building, and the presence of the just absolute masterpiece of a villain that is Valdez Doyle. We have a story that if this pacing was applied to a story that didn't have that compelling villain and the interesting world and a good dynamic between the two protagonist characters, the pacing would make the story unreadable. But your story does have those things.
Thank you. I'm writing an unreadable story well.
Sure, if that's how you want to interpret what I just said.
I know, I'm kidding. No, I really appreciate that. It's a really cool take on it, and I think that's quite cool. It's definitely been a different experience for me. Just trying to, I'm glad that you're sort of enjoying the world building, because that's like a completely new thing to me. So it's just like, learning as I'm going on. But I'm pretty pleased with this chapter, to be honest. I felt like I feel like the 1-2 punch of the Canary Cage and this, I feel like has done a fairly good job of like establishing the world a bit more.
Well, I would contest that. I think it's done a better job of solidifying the characterization and relationship between Amin and Evander.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad about that, because I wanted, if I was going to do the whole romance thing with them, I wanted it to work well. You know what I mean? And I feel like I write in a lot of ways where I'm like, I do things that I'm like, right, if I'm reading a book and I'm like, I wish this would just happen already. I try to make sure that I don't do that with my own writing. And I'm like, I just know if I was reading this, I'd be like, I wish they were just fucking together already. I hate it when you're reading a romance and you have to wait until like the last third of the book for them to actually be like, it's the last third of the book. They finally profess their feelings for each other. They're fine for 2, maybe 3 chapters. Then the conflict happens. Then the conflict resolution lasts for 2 hours. And then you get a little happy bit at the end, and then it finishes. And you're like, so the actual enjoyable bit of them actually being in love and together and interacting with each other was like this, minute chunk, and it annoys the shit out of me.
Right. Yeah. It's like, this is what I was reading this whole thing for, and I got a blip. Gee, thanks.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's other routes you can take with that. But the other routes require sidelining one of the two love interests for whatever reason. Like in mine, I sidelined the love interest because of circumstances, repeated circumstances. And then there's stories like Red Rising, where the love interest is killed off at the start as the protagonist's primary motivation.
Yeah.
So there are stories where that works. It just has to be written well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, they definitely are. To be fair, when I have most problem with it is when I'm actually reading a romance and it happens.
Right.
It's like if I'm reading something that romance is a part of, you have the license to, draw that tension out a bit. But if I'm reading something that is marketed as a romance and that I've picked it up, for a romance, and I still have to wait till the last third and all that happens, I'm like, oh. That's when I'm like wiping my arse with the book and like mailing it back to the author.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I wiped my ass with this because you suck.
What are your thoughts on Boss Man? Because I've been really intrigued to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good. I could see him going in a lot of directions. I know which direction I would take him, but I don't want to. I don't want to kind of pollute the pool, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. But he's definitely an interesting character, and he's so. I guess my primary thought on him is I want to see where this goes because I'm not sure I take the character at face value. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I want to see what comes next. In that is he going to be nailed down as what's been presented, or is there something beneath the surface?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted, so that's good.
Yeah. Because it looks like to me one of three things could happen. He could either be there.
Damn it, Caitlin, you're polluting the pool.
Trust me, I've already thought plenty about this.
Here.
I'm sure I've thought of these options, don't worry.
But it's, he could either be their worst enemy, the best friend they've ever had, or he could be complete, wild card middle ground here, kind of like Claude Rains' character in Casablanca, the French dude that was over the little military police.
I've never seen Casablanca,
So yeah, he was basically like opportunist.
Yeah, he was an altruistic opportunist. He would help you out if he could get away with it, but he would also shoot you in the back if he had to.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, those are the three options that I see in front of me as well.
Yeah.
Well, and see, fuck it, I'm just gonna. So where I would take him is I would probably set it up in such a way that the conspiracy went wrong, and he ended up having to hit the road with Evander and Amin. That's probably what I would end up doing with the character, if I was writing this like that.
Yeah, it's because you like having a big cast.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do.
Yep.
I like having all the amigos roll together because it provides so much opportunity for interactions.
Yes.
And you get to see people's dynamics, and that's a big part of the intrigue of a good protagonist, is seeing how he interacts not only with the world but with people. And
you're definitely an avalanche adventure kind of a writer. Like it just builds and rolls downhill and picks up bodies as it goes.
Well, if you ever played Final Fantasy VII, you'd understand where that comes from too. Mm-hmm. That's exactly how that game goes, and that game for me, that like built my perception of what a good story is. Mm-hmm. Like the story in Final Fantasy VII is so intricate and complex and deep, and there's so much symbolism, and there's so many little side tangents that you can leave out. Like literally, you can play the game to where you leave them out of the story, but the story takes on so much more depth when you pursue those side tangents. And it to me, that's what good stories are made out of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, because they're multifaceted, and you get so many more of those little details, which just make up a good story. Because if it's just one note, I mean, how interesting is that?
Yep.
What's fun about all this experience is that I don't fully know what's going to happen with him either at this point, and I just think it's funny that I'm in the same boat as the audience. It's like they're all like, "But Mason, where's this going to go?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I've said it before. I do think that's one thing about this story that truly is special is that you're pantsing it, but you can't go back and edit anything later. Like what you write is what is because the nature of how you're putting this together,
which is great.
And it's
like, all right, like I'm along for the ride too, guys. So how this pans out is how this pans out.
We'll go on this journey together.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it though. I feel like I'm really growing as a writer now. Like I feel like these last few months have seen like some really good growth. Like I really like that chapter. I was really proud of like the way I introduced Amin, and I was happy to, introduce her as a proper character, like I wanted to make her feel like a main character, not just like Evander's friend. So I feel like I did a good job with that, and like building some characterization with her quick. It was interesting trying to figure out what her narration was going to be like, because obviously I knew I was going to do it in third person, but I knew it needed to be different from Valdis's, which was why I tried to have the bits like, well, tough shit. And tried to like sort of tailor it to the way that she would talk a little bit. And I'm just quite, I was actually really proud of my narration that time around. Like I felt like there was a few times where I was like, damn, I fucking nailed that line.
I think there's other chapters where your narration, not to take a shit on you or anything, I just think there has been better narration before this chapter. That's just me, I guess.
Yeah. I really liked, especially that opening scene. I was a massive fan of the way that I managed to do that. Like my voice, I managed to get this really menacing tone that I was like, I was sitting there like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted from this.
Yeah.
But then I also feel like it's helped me with other things, because like obviously you guys have seen what I've got with Dishonored in Death at this point, because you're being my little beta readers, which I really appreciate. But some of that stuff, man, I was like, that whole bit about the moon, I was like, oh, this is purple as fuck. I was never expecting to write purple prose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means. Purple prose. What is that?
It's like like flowery and
okay,
like poetic. Like the whole perigee and syzygy and all that sort of stuff. Like high language.
Verbosity.
Yes, that's the word we're looking for.
Yes, which I mean, verbosity though usually alludes to people using more language than is necessary in order to describe something. Which I didn't find that to be the case though.
Well, no, because the alternative was being like, I said to Lee, I was like, I wasn't sure about like the whole elevated language for it, but I was like, but the alternative is being like the moon came out and it was a very special night because it was as close as it could possibly get to the earth, and also an eclipse was taking place. There's no way to dumb that down without it like just being extremely stupid. So it was just like, no, I'm just going to use the words.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because otherwise it comes across as, clinical and whatever, which in that kind of a case, it's not great. Or, you end up sounding like they're all standing outside gazing at the spectacular sight of Uranus. So close, you could almost touch it.
One of us is going to go carve that on his gravestone, aren't we?
Yes.
He's never ever gonna live that down with us. I love that you guys already knew about it, and I bet for weeks you were like, I can't wait to show him this. Because that's what I'd have been like. I'd have been like, oh, I cannot wait to show Zack and Kate this.
Yep, it's like, oh man.
God, I seriously though, I am really, really enjoying my author journey. Like I did not expect it to end up like mattering this much to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting to the point now where it's just who I am. Like I'm just constantly thinking about it, and I'm just like so motivated as well, which I like.
Yeah. It just really, and it excites me for you too, that you really seem to be getting to the point where you're enjoying how much you're getting into it.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely intensifying though. I feel like something's clicked over the last few months where I feel like maybe my confidence is picking up a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely willing to be like, no, I did a good job with that. I'm quite pleased with that.
Yeah.
Rather than it always feeling like I'm like stroking my own shaft. Like, oh yeah, I did a really good job with that.
Well, I mean, because
the imposter syndrome is dying, which is a good thing.
Which is good, yeah. Because a lot of people, like in theater and stuff, they tell you things like, "Oh, well, don't enjoy yourself too much," which I guess I understand the whole idea of don't enjoy the smell of your own farts too much, kind of a thing, but I think a lot of people lose the idea that, hey, you are supposed to take joy in when you feel like you did something really well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's a fine line, there's a fine line between arrogance and pride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's also a fine line between when pride is justified and when it becomes the sin of pride.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the line is, have you earned the right to be proud of this thing? And self-confidence is part of that. You have to have the confidence to say to yourself, no, I have earned this. Mm-hmm. And you also need the self-awareness to be honest with yourself. Have I actually earned this or not? And so it's definitely, it's indicative of personal growth in several facets, that you are coming to a point where you're like, no, I'm a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't feel like I had earned the right to say it in the early chapters, because it was like, yeah, well, it's a good start, but let's see how you like follow it up, sort of thing. Because it could have all gone to shit. I could have hit writer's block earlier this year and just not been able to do anymore. But it's kept going, and I feel like 7 volumes in, it's like, no, actually, you've taken those first few chapters that you put out and you fucking ran with it, and I'm actually quite pleased with how it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so now it is getting to the point where I'm like, no, I feel like I have earned the right to say I've done a good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not still a bloody long way to go, because the end is nowhere near in sight yet, but Jesus Christ.
That's how I feel about the third book in Garden.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I can't wait to see how that series ends. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing how you follow it up with book 2, because I know that it's going to be even crazier than book 1. And I really did enjoy book 1. In a year where I've been on a massive reading slump, and I just haven't really found any books that I've enjoyed that much. I really did genuinely enjoy going through yours and having that like journey of sort of, obviously you'd already written it, but because it was still taking a while, I sort of had that experience what you're having with Bleeding Ground, where it's like, okay, a couple of weeks later I get to find out what the next little bit is, and I was really enjoying that experience. And the way it like turned out in the end was so unexpected from where you started out, and I was like, oh, he's really fucking done it. He's like gone wild with this. Love it.
Well, I'll always go wild with it. You know me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I know, but when you get to that point, it's like, oh, like when the fucking penny drops, man, and you reveal everything. It's like, oh my god, I've been right the entire time. I can't believe this. And that's the best feeling in the world, man. That's why I read mystery things, because it's like I'm constantly trying to guess what the mystery is, and when you get it right, you just feel like a detective, and it's amazing.
Right.
So when we got to that bit, and I was just like, I can't believe he's actually had the balls to go with that, and it works, and it's just great.
Yeah.
Well, it only worked because I dropped the right breadcrumbs in the right places.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about, like what I said in my review about you starting your foreshadowing from
the title.
Yeah. Because
that's a good point. Yeah.
Right there. And so, when I got to the point where everything was revealed, I was like, yes, you did it. Like you
stuck the landing.
That's right. Yeah, not only stuck the landing, but I also simultaneously had that moment, like that, that cat meme where he's got the really big eyes, and it says, when you get to the point where the title of the book makes sense.
No, I have not seen that.
Okay. Well, I had that moment, but also, yes.
But see, that's one thing. That's one thing I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that kind of moment in Bleeding Ground. It's not going to be quite the same because Mason hasn't, or has he? That would be really interesting if he has set up some big mystery that's been in the background this whole time that he ties up near the end. But that's one thing I'm definitely waiting for in Bleeding Ground is like seeing. Well, like one big thing on my mind is how is the Valdis Evander thing going to end? Like that's one thing. Every time I think of the Bleeding Ground, that's one of the immediate questions I run to because it's like Valdis and what is Valdis? That's another question that just drives me nuts. Like, what is he actually?
Unfortunately, I don't know if you'll ever get an explanation of that because that's a conversation that's still going on in my head where I'm like, I don't know if any explanation does him justice. Like, it's like, how am I supposed to ever? Oh, he's I don't know. He's a demon. He's a vampire. It's just like I feel like it takes away his mystique. I think part of the character is not knowing entirely what he is.
Yeah, and if that's how you feel about it, if that's the direction you want to maintain, what I would probably do is I would drop multiple tidbits that allude to his origin, many of which conflict with each other.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because if things can be defined, they can be limited as far as their power. So, I mean, I don't know, I guess he purposefully put out misdirections as to, his own origins.
Oh, he would 100% do that.
Yeah, because it would make him, it would make him indefinable, and so therefore people couldn't, quantify him necessarily, and then, not.
And also just because he's a little shit stirrer and he just like everyone being confused.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's very clear. Whatever he is, it's very clear that he's chaotic evil, and fucking with people is everything he lives for.
Yeah.
And he goes insane when he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So,
fucking bit in the cove where he's like mad at them for being so boring.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he's immortal too would make it possible for him to play these long games that he, may or may not ever pay off depending on what randomly happens.
Yeah.
And those, in my mind, those would probably be some of his favorite games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game's been going on for like 250 years.
Yeah. But that also brings up the interesting thing that, because he is the way he is, and he just can't help himself when it comes to, playing games and messing with people and doing stuff. My favorite expression, and Zack will tell you, within iniquity is born the seeds of its own destruction. So
Yeah. So it's
this
that Tolkien
whole
idea that evil always destroys itself in the end.
Well, yeah, because inevitably it does. Because there's, they think they can play these long games for, infinite amounts of time, but eventually everything circles back on itself. So, him and this Arya situation, she could very well be his undoing or an element of it. Is another thing that I'm waiting to see if that's how that pans out.
Well, and Commander too is he's another seed.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm saying like Valdis underestimating the fact that because she is like she is, her some way being an element of his undoing could be the thing that, ultimately ends up in his demise, or Evander is able to use as a way to destroy him somehow.
Yeah, careful when you go around creating monsters.
Right, exactly. Because, they're
I'm liking being able to, introduce his presence into the Evander and Amin chapters. Like, I like just that little thread, like tying the two things together. Now, like he's, we're with him on his journey, but now he's like it's also sort of starting to bleed through. And I really like how that dream ended up turning out. I was like, oh, I was so worried about how it was going to seem, but then I was like, afterwards, I was like, nope, okay, I executed that the way I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of dream sequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I how to articulate is that this isn't even a fully formed idea. I guess where I'm kind of going with this half baked idea is just that you're not even utilizing all of the potential that this dream sequences element that you've now opened yourself up to has. And I probably would have engaged in that more in the chapters where it's been present. And I'm very curious to see if it continues to develop and what direction it takes. Because the wonderful thing about dreams is they have such an ability to impact us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you could take it in so many directions.
Well, yeah, and there's clearly some element of interaction between magic and the dream world.
Right.
Well, I've clearly established that, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But then it can't all be that though, because John was actually in her room in the canary cage when she woke up.
Mm-hmm.
So there must be some. That's interesting though. That might just mean that he was going into her dream from next to her.
True.
Or vice versa. He found her in the dream world where it's easier to find her, and then he used that as a way of pulling himself into a
that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, that's the thing when you establish magic systems that have a dream element to them or a dream world element to them.
Right.
Is the which way does the link go and where does it end?
I definitely would say through context clues, that your version is right, because thinking of the dream world as a real place, symbolically speaking at least, when she originally had the dream, John was off in the distance over where the shadow was.
Right.
And then Meme was like, and then I could feel him. Like I could feel his attention on me. And once he like noticed that she was in the dream world, he came from over where the shadow / Veldus was to where Evander and Amina. And then was able to go through her into the real world. I like that.
Yeah.
And there's a whole different part of it you need to look at it from too. So Amin has no immediate connection to Valdis and the guy who was murdered. So was Amin on that spirit's, we'll say his ghost's radar because of her connection to Evander?
Right.
And so then we have to ask, okay, so is Amin some kind of medium whose psychic presence is more amplified than Evander's? So the connection to Valdis could be felt through her. And that opens you up to a whole line of potential routes to take things.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of different ways I could take the dream thing, and I have already thought of that myself, where I was like, okay, well, dreams have been enough of a thing in this now that they are something.
Right.
Absolutely. And it makes for good storytelling, because I mean, dreams are a universal human experience, and almost every single person knows what it's like to have a dream that unsettles them, or they wake up feeling a certain way from a dream.
There was 2 homages to my hometown in that chapter.
Yeah.
There was two places that I named that are places near me.
Hold that thought. I gotta piss again. Damn caffeine.
He has to piss again. Gotta empty his bladder. Gotta empty his bladder.
It's like, oh well. Gosh.
It was. I tell you what, though, Kate, it was funny. Writing them, them bloody kiss scenes. They were funny. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Got to get out of my show with this.
Right. Yeah, that's me too with writing romance scenes. For some reason, it's just, I don't know, it's super awkward.
I know.
It's like, why is this so awkward? Like, I don't know. It's just like part of it.
You're like intruding on these 2 characters that you created.
Right. Yeah, part of it, I guess it depends on the characters, really, because I've written a lot of romance scenes, and I guess it just really depends on the story and, like I said, the characters, because some of them, like if it's a shake and bake, most of the time it just feels really awkward. And again, like with trying to create a lot of emotional impact, with more of a shake and bake kind of Harlequin sort of romance situation, I always felt like there was just an enormous presence of cheese.
Yeah.
Just,
I have a feeling that the Z-Dog doesn't have a problem with writing romantic scenes. I bet he's just like on the keyboard, so like no second guessing. He fucking pulled off her bra and licked her nipple.
I'm a horny bastard, and I love a good love story. Like, yeah. The only time I had a problem writing a romantic scene is when I wrote the kiss atop the rock in the storm in Garden, and that was only painful because of the real life connection that I had.
Yeah.
When I wrote Wolves and Ravens, I was like, oh yeah, this is so hot.
I would watch this.
I wish this was me. Oh,
I wish this was me in female pay.
fuck it, I'd be the female in this situation. This is so hot.
Yeah, see, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I was like, oh, he pulls her closer and wraps his arms around her waist. Right, time that. Okay, quick breath. Okay, you can do the next bit. He slides a hand over her back and into her head.
He's like a nervous schoolboy, and then they held hands.
And then she wrote Mrs. Evander Fletcher in her notebook and put a heart around it.
Oh man.
And then Evander slipped her a note and said, "Would you like to be my girlfriend?" X. And there was a box next to yes and a box next to no.
It's just Y and N.
And she penciled in at the bottom, maybe? ...
And then the teacher caught them passing the note back and forth and was like, Evander, I mean, anything you'd like to share?
And then Ricky in the back is like, they're gay for each other. And all the kids laugh.
Yeah, I think the most awkward part about writing it was like knowing that like A, my mum listens to Bleeding Ground and B, my nanan. So it's just like I've got to write this. I've got to write this romantic scenes with heaps and heaps of sexual tension, knowing that like my mom has to sit and hear this, like with me doing the narration as well. It's not just that she's got to read the words; she's got to hear me saying them.
Oh my gosh! This is like, hey, mom, you're gonna have to become okay with just.
I'm gonna need everyone to get real cool with a lot of things real quick.
Oh man! Oh gosh!
If that was like an episode though, and that's how it went off the air, you'd be like, I don't know about you guys, but I'd be like, oh, oh, I need the next episode now.
Yeah,
and because it's a safe sex show, not a safe sex show. That would mean they were protected, but it's the sort of one where it would open with them rolling over in bed. It's the they just fucked shot.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
So that whole paragraph is so funny with the cinnamon rolls and the cake and the pastry. It's just like. It's such a clearly like, wow, the author was hungry during this bit, weren't you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's like, yep.
It's like what you tried to do was like use writing that stimulated all of the senses. What you really did was just advertise that you were hungry.
Right. That's how I feel about reading a lot of Tolkien's stuff sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, you were just really tired right now. I wanted somewhere comfy to lie, weren't you, Tolkien? That's why we just had to listen to 3 paragraphs of how comfortable Frodo's bed was.
Right, yes. That's what he was thinking about. He was thinking about his pipe weed, his food, and his bed. He was like, these are the 3 things that sustain me.
And landscapes.
Yes. Yeah, he's like, I want to lay in a comfy bed where with my wife where I can smoke my pipe and
look out of the window at a sweeping field.
Right, yeah. Look out the window at all these trees and field and, eat pastry.
I hate him for turning me into that sort of writer though as well, where I'm like, oh yes, the soft earth and the fallen leaves and everything was cloaked in a veil of mist as she sat on the fallen oak and looked out at the bleary landscape. Like,
Yeah,
you did this to me, Tolkien. You did this to me.
sir.
Shut up, fish. You love it.
You turned me into a guy who describes the landscape in detail.
Yes.
The other day, I found myself looking up what plants grow on moorland, Tolkien. I found myself looking at what elevation you find moorlands to see if it made sense for there being moorlands in the fucking chapter that I was writing, because I was like, well, how far away have they come from the sea? Is it highland? Is it lowland? Is there mountains nearby? Isn't
It's like, well, because you need to know these things. It's like, does this world make sense? If you're going to build a world, it needs to make logistical sense. Because if it doesn't, it just takes you right out of the story. It's like, what kind of a world are you building? This makes no natural sense whatsoever. Why is this way? Why did you make it not make sense? Is there
why are they only an hour from the coast and in the middle of deep moorlands?
Yeah.
This should clearly be low-lying wetlands.
Right.
And it should smell musky and peaty from the bogs.
Right.
Dear.
I can't wait to do some. There's some scenes in Garden that I really cannot wait to describe the landscape, because I have some, like, everything we've seen so far is like fairly consistent with kind of stuff you'd see on Earth, but I have some stuff planned that is just fantastical in nature, and it is going to be.
You need to read that Shadow of the Gods that I was telling you about.
Yeah,
I've finished it now, and oh my god, dude! There's a bit where they're like standing. This group of people are standing looking over this landscape that's covered in what they think is snow, but is actually ash, and it's illuminated by that world's equivalent of the Northern Lights. And this landscape is like where there was a massive battle, and there's all these like bodies of like the gods and stuff. Yeah. It's fucking mint. It's so good.
I love how giddy you sound.
Oh, it flips that switch in my brain of that like childhood, like reading Lord of the Rings, like, oh my god, this place is so like magical and awesome.
Yeah.
Because I can just picture myself standing there on top of this hill with all these like fucking these people that I've been on a journey with for this whole book that are like my friends now, and we're just stood staring over this like battlefield with the bodies of dead gods, and it's got ash all over the place, and the Northern Lights going off, and it's all cold, and it's oh god, it's just and there's so much stuff that's like true to like Norse mythology as well, like stuff that initially I was like, okay, that's a bit of a weird choice. Like there's a creature that eats human teeth.
Oh god.
Like a tooth fairy.
We have someone in the comments saying hello, Jonathan Jimenez.
Jonathan Jimenez, you are awesome, and that is the customary greeting of the adventurer.
Yes.
At least the one you get from Mason in the Dark. The lead adventurer, is more just like, sup.
Yeah, he's like, hi.
Yes, but you are not as epic as I am.
I'm the lead adventurer, bitch.
Yes, but I'm the real hero. Yeah, on all good teams, there's the leader, and then there's the one that really gets shit done.
Oh yeah, that's Kate.
Yeah, it is.
It's just like, yeah, nuts and bolts.
Our existence is just throwing casual jabs at each other, isn't it?
In between sessions of hard mutual shaft stroking, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 20 minutes of shaft stroking, bit of like jabbing and calling each other a dickhead, then back to "You're a great writer." Oh, thanks. You're a great writer too.
Now all we need is a couple thousand fans to have them tell us we're great writers.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus, where's the appreciation for the hard work?
Right. Yeah.
That's one of the things I like. Not to sit here and complain and be a little bitter bitch about it, but it really is frustrating to me that we live in a culture where bullshit like teenage girls twerking on TikTok gets millions of views, and I have a free audiobook on my YouTube channel, which is an epic fantasy, which is universally praised by everyone that reads it. I've not had a single legitimate negative review, and I can't get people to go consume it. It's
super.
Yeah, because they're too busy watching X Factor.
I guess.
Yeah. It just shows that I'm mid 2000s. That done it saying X Factor rather than using TikTok like you did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, oh, you didn't win the sad Olympics, so we're not going to consume your content.
Exactly. That's
no, I think I did a fairly good job of winning the sad Olympics, and I still don't have that many people checking it out. So I have the sob story. I'm the writer that lost their eyesight and rediscovered their love for reading and started their own channel and then started producing their own audiobook. Like that's fucking reality TV sob story example number one. Stick a bit of fucking piano music behind it. Mason was 23 years old when he lost his vision.
Right.
But you associate with me, so you're guilty by association.
Cancelled by extent.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Lordy.
Speaking of guilty by association, I really, man, now that we're here in the church, I would really like to figure out what we're going to do about getting the podcast back up and running.
Yeah.
Okay. Why was that why was that guilty by association? What was the connection there?
The association part.
Okay.
But yeah, I just yeah, I miss doing it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we can definitely discuss it and put some shit together. Put our three creative minds together.
Yes.
Yeah. I still don't know what the central, because most podcasts today have a core concept or a subject they constantly kick around. And I just don't know what, I mean, ours could just be a general, a pop culture story and stories, that kind of thing.
It could be, yeah. There could be some potential in that.
Yeah.
I still love that you're streaming from a church, though. I don't know why. I just find it really funny.
Me too.
I'm in my bedroom. You're in a church.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can safely say I've never pooped in a church. Especially not to the point where my friend is afraid that you might be able to hear it on the live stream that I'm doing in the other room.
Oh, dude, that's not. I'm not afraid. The other night, we were live streaming over on Twitch, and I was narrating my trip to the bathroom to the stream.
Yep. Yeah.
You were a deviant, good sir.
Yeah.
It's like the inaugural shit.
If you were a symbol, you'd be the circle with the anarchist A in the middle.
I'm not so sure about that. That's man,
no, it was me lightly making fun of you. You're right.
I
It doesn't suit you at all.
That is true, Jonathan. That's partially our fault. We didn't get the stream set up ahead of time, so none of our subscribers got the notification. And it's just kind of is what it is. Yeah. We appreciate you being here.
We do definitely appreciate that. It sounds like I'm not being serious, but I promise I'm just British. I really appreciate it.
It's like I naturally sound sarcastic.
I can't switch it off. It's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love you, Lee. And she's like, oh, can you say it with a bit more meaning? Jesus.
Yep.
My favorite line from this chapter, not favorite line, but my favorite little interaction between them two was just me being like, personally, I reckon she just ate you. She's trying to feed you to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, brilliant.
Yeah, because if a woman hates you, she's gonna feed you, because that's how that works.
I'm going to make him fat.
I'm going to make him gain 600 pounds so that his heart gives in.
And all inheritance will be mine.
I can't run away from the crown, can you now, fatty?
It was all a ploy, Amanda. First, I made you love me. Then I made you fat. Then I left you with the bag.
Good luck. And she's running away. And then they're just waddling after her. Wait! I need some more carrot cake.
He's got the ancestral sword in his hand. It looks like a toothpick next to his immense bulk.
Oh my god.
Is that the name, by the way, is that the name of that thing? The ancestral sword? Is that like its proper name?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I referred to it as that, but that's a very cool thing for it to be called.
Didn't he refer to it that way? I thought he did.
No, he just explained that it was an ornate sword that he'd only ever seen on his father's wall, and it had been passed down.
Yeah. It did not have a name.
I personally wish that I hadn't included that, to be honest.
Why?
Because it's such a that sword is a thing. I'm like, now I have to make it something later, and it can't be like the sword is the only thing that will kill Veldus, because it's so fucking lame.
Right? Yeah, and it's cliche by now.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily. The sword can be a thing without being the only thing that'll kill Valdis. Like, for example, the sword could be like the magic that the village had. The sword could be the source of that, or a conduit to that. The sword could be a relic from the dream world.
I don't think that's what I'll go with, but that's a cool idea. Yeah. The sword was actually Valdis's. And that's the only reason it can kill him, because he gave the sword to Evander's ancestors because it amused him that the people that he was like, the people that he was like messing with had the thing to destroy him, but had no idea that they needed to use it.
Ah,
That wouldn't be bad either.
yeah.
But then you'd be falling right back into the cliche of this is the one thing that can kill him.
Well, that's why I was saying it, because I would, if I thought I was actually going to use it, I wouldn't say it, would I?
I mean, maybe.
No,
Maybe.
no. Oh no. If I was actually going to use it, I'd be like, okay, I'll file that away for later.
Right.
Because I want to see Zack's face when I present him with this earth-shattering truth.
Yep.
What's funny is I can't see his face, so I don't actually need to see his face. It's just the pleasure of knowing that I'm making him pull a face.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Because he does have a very audible face.
And
He wears
Mag,
his emotions on his face.
What?
He wears his emotions on his face.
Well, yeah.
Some people hide them away, Game.
I thought you were saying what to what I said.
Yeah.
It was really cold when I came in here, and now I'm really hot.
Mm.
Heated up over the time, bastard.
Yeah.
I was happy to stay cold and comfy in my hoodie.
Yeah. Yeah. Hoodies are great.
We got Tigger a castle the other day. Not a castle. It's just a cat tree, but it's fucking huge, and I just love imagining it as a castle.
Yes.
I never will understand y'all people that like cats. Never will.
He's adorable. It's really funny to me that he shows me where his bowl is. When it's time to be fed, I go over to pick his bowl up, and he just like stands in front of me like, "It's here, get it."
Yes.
I was laughing at him earlier because he was like getting under my feet as I was trying to like take the bowl into the kitchen, and then I sort of like nudged him with my foot, and he like gave me like this sort of like Mason sort of meow, like I'm here, and I'm like, you're getting under my feet and then shouting at me when you get caught. Move, cat.
Right. Yeah, they are really like that though. It's like, look here, you will love me, but on my terms.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay? And you love me any more than the terms that have been said by me, and you will receive consequences.
Cats are narcissists.
Yes.
Mason, it's currently 6:30 in the evening. You usually feed me at approximately 6:05, which means that you are in fact 25 minutes late. As you will surely know, this is a violation of the roommate agreement. Don't force me to excommunicate you, Mason.
Yep. It's like
it's funny because I can't do that voice for the Torch Tube guy anymore because Tigger's stolen that voice.
Oh gosh.
And now I can't do the version that's not just a cat.
Yeah.
I think you totally could.
Yes, you just have to do the slightly deeper version that doesn't have quite as much nasaliness.
Yes, it doesn't have the meow in the background.
Yes,
He's
exactly.
not a famous voice actor.
No, I don't meow.
That was withering sarcasm. I love that.
No, I'm dead serious. Like, you have amazing vocal acting talent. Like, the number of voices you can do and hold and pull off believably, it's like you could genuinely be a good voice actor.
Thank you. I'm so British. I was just waiting for the punchline that entire time.
I'm not always an asshole, man.
Not always. 75% of the time. I'm sorry. I was just that little pause. Then was me figuring out what percentage was the funniest.
I could practically hear you calculating.
Should I put up with?
Dude, I'm still not over that bloody woman in with the dwarf thing. Oh
my gosh!
Like I don't feel like I can tell the story on my channel because it feels like it had just come across wrong. But I was telling someone recently about writing a short story in which the main character is a dwarf, and the person thought that I meant dwarf as in little person.
Oh my gosh!
You mentioned that,
and I just didn't have the heart to correct her because she was really happy that that little people were getting that representation. She was like really pleased. She was like, "Oh well, you don't see little people get focused on that much." And I was like, "I was talking about dwarves, lady. Like,
as in literal dwarves."
I don't have the heart to correct you. I just hope you never read the story, and we can just pretend that I meant what you think I meant."
Right.
What would be really funny is if she read the story and still had the same opinion.
Yes, because all little people that I've ever met are bald with head tattoos and a beard.
And then carry around big sacred maces.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you being in the situation you're in, I mean, you could imagine all of them that way.
I want that mace, by the way, that she has. I haven't had that experience before of crafting a weapon that I was like, I want that weapon.
Yeah.
But when I wrote that mace, I was like, I want that. Even if it's plastic, just give me a version of that I can swing around and feel like a dwarf.
Yes.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm a big weapons guy, so I definitely want Dolge's swords. I want Dolge's knife, which later becomes someone else's knife. Yeah, and Dolge is going to get a new toy to play with. Actually, two new toys to play with in the third book, and I want both of those.
Gosh.
I would like a bow and arrow. I've always been a bow and arrow type person. I feel like to be fair, it's funny though, because I feel like there is a part of me that's just is probably more of a dwarf, because I've always liked the double-headed axe. It's just always been something that I've looked at and been like, yes, please. Fucking planting your feet apart, big old axe in your hand. Fucking come at me, orcs.
Right.
I will chop you dead.
Yeah. I've always found battle scythes to be very cool too.
Yes, the scythe is definitely a cool weapon, actually.
Yeah. They're very ominous looking. It's like, yes, I am here to reap your souls.
I was writing a bit of Dishonored in Death today, and I had the villain who's an elf, because I was like, yeah, okay, we'll play up on the extra fantasy thing of having, that like whole beef between the dwarves and elves, because how can I just not do that?
Right.
So I had the bad guy be an elf, and I wrote this. What? Sorry.
I said, cliche.
I think you'll find it's called a homage. A tip of the hat, as you would say. But I wrote this line of dialogue for him, and I was like, "Oh, you massive dickhead," because he's just like this pompous elf guy with like the haughty, like I'm better than you elf energy, and he comes out and he's like, he like sees the woman's got like the magic going on, and he's like, I see that you've learned some magic tricks from your occultist hag of a mother. And he's like, necromancy, really? I didn't think a half-breed scragger like you would dare to wield that sort of power. You must have truly loved your brother. I always had the suspicion that your family was inbred filth.
Oh,
Ah!
bro.
I hit period at the end of that, and I was like, "Oh, you dick!"
I love moments like that where you just look at your characters, just like,
who are you?
who
I
are
have that with Valdez all the time. Who are you, and what part of my brain did you come from?
Yes, what part of my brain did you crawl out of?
I especially had that during the mental torture of John, when it, like that whole bit, and Valdez is just having like a great taste, like borderline got a boner. It's like, oh, John, you poor fool.
Right.
Where did you come from in my brain?
Yeah. It's like, where did you come from? Can you go back there?
This is something. This is something I talk a lot about. Talk to Kate about a lot, is the fact that a lot of people have this thing about themselves, and some writers discover it in their writing, through their writing. A lot of the time, other people discover it other ways. They have this part of themselves that they can't stand, or they hate, or whatever. And that's one thing about going to therapy for me during 2019 that really was a worthwhile venture, because it's like now I'm at peace with all of the worst parts of myself, and I look at them as the useful and well-rounded parts of my psyche that they are, and I just kind of revel in the madness, so to speak.
I mean, Valdez couldn't be much more different from me, though. He's a smart planning guy, and I'm just, well, I'm the definition of a life pantser. I'm just like, okay, this thing's coming along, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that just shows that you have that somewhere in you. It's just that your disposition and value system doesn't require you to exercise it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also think it's more so with Valdez is that he just doesn't have that thing of like, oh no, I shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't have that bad person filter. Like, oh yeah, I'd probably be a cunt if I did that. Oh, actually, speaking of cunts,
Yes.
I was looking earlier. I was trying to like immerse myself in like a dwarf way of talking, and I was looking at like some suggestions for dwarven insults, and one of them was, "I will build a cathedral, and I'll build a cathedral in your mother's cunt, and sacrifice your sister at its altar." What? I was like, that is somehow the best and worst insult I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to think about that.
It's like, your mum's a slag, and I'm gonna kill your sister in her vagina.
Right.
Oh,
like,
God.
well,
I love slag as an
then.
insult. It's so
Yes.
good.
It's not something that I use all the time. I only used it there for comedic effect.
Well, what I love about it is, I don't know if you know this, but slag is the waste product of certain types of welding, and it's
From an
huge
industrial town, mate. I know that, yeah. Well, and it's mining as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually got a place near us where there's like 2 hills, and they're actually just slag heaps.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of that in Arizona. There's a lot of that in Arizona. The entire small mountains that are just mining slag.
That's brilliant. That just means that slag would actually be a fairly decent dwarvish insult.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never thought of that before, but that's actually really like slag would be a genuinely really brilliant insult for a dwarf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like you are the waste that we get rid of to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I wish people would actually think about it like that, because it'd be fucking mint if the elf in Dishonored in Death called her a slag.
Yeah.
This half-breed slag. Like that's actually like a genuinely really good insult to her like kin.
Mm-hmm.
But people would have the other connotation for it, and it's annoying.
Right.
Connotations.
Yes.
Fuck you and your connotations.
Yes. You and your irrelevant context.
We have, however, reached the time that I need to wrap up.
Yes.
Oh,
I was actually just about to say that myself.
Well, did you enjoy yourselves?
Always. I always
Yes.
enjoy coming on and getting to talk to you. You know that.
Oh yeah.
As for Bleeding Ground, I think the next one will probably be a little while. Like, it's not going to be ages and ages, but I really want to focus on Dishonored in Death.
Better not be.
Right.
How long? I really need to.
Longer do you think it's going to take you to finish that?
Well, my goal is to have it like done by the 15th.
Mm.
And then that gives it like a month for the editing process and like just nailing down the rest. And I think I'm fairly close now.
Honestly, man, I really think you're. I think you're. What's the right way to say this? I think you're being pessimistic on your own capabilities in terms of how fast you can get it done.
Yeah, well, I'm just taking my time though. Too, I'm just trying. I don't want to just like crank out my first thought. I'm just trying to.
Right.
I'm just trying to get it down and have it be as good as it can possibly be. Because at the end of the day, if it works, it's like people are going to see that before they see Bleeding Ground.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I want something that makes them go, because if it works, I think we're allowed to in like the author bio bit, we're allowed to include our links and stuff. So if the story is good enough, that drives people to the channel then as well, to be like,
mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll go see what else he's written.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, good point. I guess that's just a lot of the time, what my first mind produced Garden of Lies. So that's just how I think. That's the mode I think in, because my first thought is almost always what I go with.
See, I'm like a type this paragraph out, listen back to it. Okay, there was like two or three things that I needed to change in that. Okay, I'll change that about and rephrase this bit here and tinker with that. I just tinker as I go along until I'm sort of happy with the section, and then I move on.
Mm-hmm.
Very different processes, you and I.
Yeah,
that's interesting though.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I mean, because with some things, there are some things that I pump out, and I'll be like, okay, this is how this is. It stays like this. It was good first time around, and then there are other things though that I feel like after putting out like the first draft, that there's stuff buried under the surface in a way. So I go back and either expand on it or just do it over, because I feel like there's more in there than what the first draft had to say.
Yeah, it was like that with that Dark Omens and Big Dreams, like the whole boss man conversation. I must have written that like 2 or 3 different ways. Like it originally went like a very different, like had a very different tone to the conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were wrapping up.
We were. All right, everyone.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thanks for stopping in and saying hey. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
And anyone who watches this in posterity, Appreciate you, you intrepid son of a bitch. Go give
You
yourself.
lovely bastard.
Welcome to the adventure.
Welcome to the adventure.
Welcome to the adventure.
He does the Scottish accent just to fuck with me.